All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back.
Yeah, so today we're going to be looking at some pretty interesting
All
news
right.
out of United Airlines.
Okay.
They're launching a new nonstop route.
Wow, a nonstop.
Yeah, from San Francisco to San Jose, Costa Rica.
Huh, interesting.
But here's the thing that's really interesting is that this isn't just some spur of the moment decision or anything like that. This new route has actually been in the works for over 5 years.
5 years. Wow, that's a really long time. That's longer than most people spend in college. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into that. We're going to be looking at this press release from United. We've got some statements from SFO's director, Ivar C. Sotero, and
Yeah, what's so special about 5 years? Why is that such a big deal?
I think the 5 years is a really big deal because it shows just how much goes into planning these routes.
Yeah, that's true.
This isn't something where they just kind of throw a dart at a map and say, okay, let's fly there.
Yeah.
You mean this is daily year-round service on a Boeing 737 starting May 2025?
Yeah, 2025, that's a while away too. So they're really thinking ahead.
Yeah, so there are a lot of moving pieces to this.
Definitely. And I think it speaks to what Mr. Sotero was saying about fulfilling a long-standing demand. I mean, clearly they've been getting requests for this route for a while now, and he specifically thanked the airport's aviation marketing and development team, for their persistence. And I think that that's huge because those are the folks working behind the scenes. They're crunching numbers, they're forecasting demand, and then they have to go and work with the airlines to bring these routes to life.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up an interesting point for me because I think a lot of times when we hear about, a new route launching,
Right.
we just kind of think, oh, well, there must be a lot of people who want to go there.
Right, exactly.
But it sounds like there's a lot more to it than that.
Absolutely. There's a ton more to it.
So, what else goes into making this decision? I mean, are we just talking about passenger numbers or?
It's so much more than just passenger numbers. I mean, think of it this way. The airlines need to make sure that this route is going to be profitable, right? They need to make sure that they can fill those planes and that they're actually going to be making money on this.
Okay, so what goes into that?
So you've got things like market demand, right? How many people actually want to fly between these two cities? And then you have to look at competition. Are there other airlines already flying this route? And how are they pricing their tickets? And then you've got things like fuel costs, the cost of operating the aircraft crews, salaries, maintenance, all of that stuff factors into the equation. And then they even have to think about connecting passengers. So, maybe someone is flying from San Francisco to San Jose, but then they're connecting on to another destination in Costa Rica, or maybe even further afield in Central or South America. So they're trying to look at the bigger picture of their entire network and see how this new route fits into that puzzle.
So it's like a giant puzzle
It really is a giant puzzle.
where they're trying to put all these pieces together too.
Absolutely. And these aviation marketing and development teams are the ones who are like putting the puzzle together, right? They're the ones who are doing all the research and analysis and trying to convince the airlines that this route is worth their investment.
So what kind of stuff are they looking at?
I mean, they're looking at everything. They're looking at economic data, tourism trends, seasonality, even special events that might impact travel patterns. I mean, think about it. If there's a big festival or a conference happening in San Jose, that's going to drive up demand for flights, right? So they're trying to anticipate all of these factors and build a case to prove to the airlines that this route is going to be successful.
So how do they even go about convincing an airline hey, come fly to our airport?
That's where the negotiation comes in. I mean, airports are competing for airlines. They want those airlines to choose their airport over another one, so they offer incentives like reduced landing fees, marketing support, even infrastructure improvements to sweeten the deal. It's a whole back and forth. And these airport marketing teams, they're kind of like salespeople. They're out there pitching their airport and trying to make it as attractive as possible for the airlines.
Wow, it's really fascinating to think about just how much goes on behind the scenes. When we book a flight, we just kind of take it for granted that, the plane is going to be there and it's going to take us to where we want to go. But it's amazing to think about all of the effort that goes in to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole industry unto itself, and there are so many people working behind the scenes to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And I think it's important to remember that, too, because, we often just think about the pilots and the flight attendants, but there's a whole army of people working on the ground to make sure that those planes get in the air and that they get to their destination safely.
So we've talked a lot about, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the planning that goes into a new route. But let's talk about the impact of this new route.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, obviously, increased tourism to Costa Rica is probably like the most obvious outcome.
Right. Of course, more flights, more people traveling to Costa Rica.
But what about like, the potential economic benefits for San Francisco and San Jose?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, this could lead to all sorts of new business opportunities, job creation, even cultural exchange.
So are we talking like, more jobs in the tourism industry or?
It could be jobs in the tourism industry, definitely, but it could also be jobs in other sectors. Maybe there are companies in San Francisco that start doing business with companies in Costa Rica or vice versa. And then there's also the potential for increased investment. Maybe companies see this new route as an opportunity to invest in Costa Rica or in San Francisco.
So it's like a ripple effect.
It really is a ripple effect. It's not just about getting people from point A to point B. It's about all of the other things that happen as a result of that increased connectivity.
So are there any potential downsides to this?
Well, that's an important question to consider, right? Because while increased tourism can bring a lot of benefits, it also needs to be managed sustainably. You don't want to overwhelm local communities or have a negative impact on the environment. So I think it's important for both San Francisco and San Jose to think carefully about how they manage this increased tourism and how they ensure that it benefits everyone.
So it's a balancing act.
Exactly. It's a balancing act between economic growth and responsible tourism.
So we've gone from, a simple news announcement about a new airline route to a deep dive into the world of route planning and tourism and all of these like really complex issues.
Yeah, it's been a really fascinating conversation, I think.
It really has. And I think it's so eye-opening to see just how much goes into these decisions that we often just kind of like take for granted.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, who knew that there was so much to think about when it comes to planning an airline route? But it just goes to show that even the simplest things are often much more complex than they appear.
And I think that this new route, it really raises some important questions about the future.
Definitely.
Like, how is this development going to influence San Francisco and San Jose in the long term?
Right. What's going to happen to housing costs? What's going to happen to the job market? What's going to happen to the environment? These are all really important questions that we need to be thinking about.
And then on a broader level,
Yeah.
What other factors, both seen and unseen, are shaping the future of air travel?
Yeah. I mean, are we going to see more of these long-haul, nonstop routes? Are we going to see new technologies that make flying even more efficient and sustainable? I think it's a really exciting time to be following the airline industry because there's so much change and innovation happening, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I agree. So as we all go about booking our next trips, let's maybe take a moment to think about all of the things that went into making that flight possible.
Yeah, absolutely. All the people, all the planning, all the behind-the-scenes work that goes into getting us from point A to point B.
And maybe even consider how our travel choices are impacting the world around us.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway for everyone to think about.
So thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.